I was asked by the vocational guidance teacher at the Polytech, which was called Christchurch Technical College in those days, and I was asked, our boss at Ballantynes asked the vocational guidance person, had they got a girl who would be suitable to go and work at Ballantynes in the finishing workroom. So my vocational guidance asked me would I like to apply for or be recommended by them for the job, and I said I'd have to ask my mother because I was in the course that was going to go on and do school cert. But my mother said, well, if you want to take on something that's more manual, we won't say no and we'll allow you to start work. So I started at Ballantynes. And that was still, the war was on then. I was there during the fire. That was a very sad time for us because our workroom was on the Litchfield Street side of Ballantynes, just across the road from the main shop. And the workroom people were all asked to please leave because we were sent home. Reese Brothers was on the corner of Litchfield Street and Colombo Street, and they had a lot of munitions in that building. And our boss, who had the presence of mind to say, you people go on home and come back tomorrow when the fire, they didn't think it was going to be very serious at that stage. So we weren't in danger of the fire, but later on, when we came back the next day, we found that the fire had been very serious and people had lost their lives. We looked across through the back of our workroom and saw some of the bicycles that were still in the place where they parked the bikes were still there, and some of our own girls who rode their bikes to work said, well, those people must have perished in the fire. It was very, very sad. We were all told the next day to come into work in the workroom because we would be the first aid place for the workers who were working in the Ballantynes building, trying to discover any more folks who had perished in the actual fire. So we were told to come to Ballantynes in the workroom, and we were like their first aid place with our first aid stuff that we could give them patches and plasters and things on their broken bits. And then we were asked to go down to King Edward Barracks, the army part along Castle Street, down the road a bit, to report in to say we were safe. My husband was doing a special course for salesmanship, and several of these men were chosen to go from the places that they worked at to do this course. And one of the people was my boss's son-in-law, and they said when the course was over, would we all go to that home in Papua Nui to have a meal together and let the men reminisce about what they had done. And the lady who was taking the special course had to go down to Ballantynes and Timaru for some thing down there, but she was going to come into their house on the way back for the meal to be with us all. But she didn't turn up, and we had to have our meal without her. The next day we discovered that she had come back early and gone to into her office upstairs at Ballantynes, and she was one of the ones who had perished in the fire. So that was really very hard for them all to realise what had happened. My boss said, would I go across the road to the main shop and cut out some loose covers on some furniture which had been sent in by one of the farmers' wives from out in the country, because they were wanting loose covers made, and the furniture had to be brought into town because the petrol was rationed, and they couldn't. I couldn't go out to the country to do it, so I was brought in, asked to go across, and I said, "Shall I finish the job I'm doing in the workroom, or is it urgent and do you need me to go to do it now?" And he said, "Please finish what you're doing and then go across to the main shop and cut out the loose cover and bring the cover back to be machined in the workroom." I said, "Well, I will finish what I'm doing and then go across." And that was when the fire started. So I would have been over in that workroom and may have perished with the loose covers and things that were over in that part of the shop. At the time of the fire, I had actually chosen the fabric for a wedding dress and also for the veil. And when we did get married 2 years after, well, in 1948, I went into Ballantynes to gather up the things that I had put on lay-by, because I couldn't afford to buy them straight away. And I went to Mr. Ballantyne and asked him, could he sign the docket to say that I was eligible for staff discount. And he said, "How long have you worked at Ballantynes?" And I said, "I started when I left school, and now I'm leaving because I'm getting married." So he said that was a very long time, and he remembered me from way back. And he'd been overseas and he'd met an English lady over there, and they'd come back to New Zealand, married in England, and come back to New Zealand to live. And I remember when their children were born, so it's going back a long way.